Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are going to completely dismantle a piece of life advice you have probably heard a million times. We're going to examine the whole traditional safety net mentality by breaking down the incredibly powerful philosophy and the personal experiences of Denzel Washington. Let's just dive right into this, because what we're about to unpack here fundamentally changes how you should be looking at every single setback in your life.
You know the advice, right? Have you ever been told to make sure you have something to fall back on? I'm absolutely sure you have. Whether you were applying to college, picking a major, or deciding on a completely new career path, well-meaning people love to hand out this exact piece of advice. Hey, just make sure you have a backup plan. But think about what that really implies for a second. It inherently implies an expectation of failure, and you're basically preparing yourself to retreat before you even start. Now look at the stark contrast between that traditional advice and Denzel Washington's totally inverted philosophy. He actually says he never understood the concept of having something to fall back on. His logic is just brilliant. He says if you're going to fall, you shouldn't want to fall back onto anything. You want to fall forward. Why? Well, because at least that way you'll actually see what you're going to hit. It's a completely proactive, forward-moving approach to taking chances. And this perfectly illustrates why playing it safe is, ironically, the most dangerous thing you can do. Denzel anchors his whole philosophy with this incredibly powerful quote from Nelson Mandela. There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living. If you are constantly leaning on that fallback plan, you are by definition playing small. You're holding back the raw effort that is actually required for true passion and achievement.
All right, let's move into Section 1, redefining failure as success.
We really need to define how failure actually works here. Falling forward isn't just some catchy bumper sticker slogan. It is a literal mechanical process. It's the process where every single failed experiment is simply one step closer to success. Think of it as a navigational tool. Look, you will fail, you will lose, you'll probably embarrass yourself a few times. It's totally inevitable. But failure is not a dead end. It's a required, unavoidable mechanism that directly builds your eventual success.
Which brings us to this pretty blunt reality from Denzel himself. If you don't fail, you're not even trying. To get something you've never had, you have to do something you never did. So failure isn't a sign that you're incompetent, not at all. It is the ultimate proof that you're putting in the effort and taking the necessary risks. As he says, without consistency, you'll never finish, but without failure, you never even started.
Which leads us nicely into Section 2. Famous stories of falling forward.
Let's look at some numbers to put this in perspective. 2,600. That is the exact number of times the legendary baseball player Reggie Jackson struck out in his career. Just let that sink in. That is the most strikeouts in the entire history of baseball. But honestly, you never hear about the strikeouts, do you? People only remember the legendary home runs. He literally had to fall forward 2,600 times to become an icon.
And how about this one? 1,000. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. 1,000 separate times he got it completely, utterly wrong. But the 1,001st try? Well, that was the light bulb. Every single one of those 1,000 failed experiments wasn't a waste of time. They were just necessary steps to changing the entire world.
Now let's map this exact same concept onto Denzel's own timeline. At age 20, he hits rock bottom. He's got a 1.8 GPA at Fordham University, and the school politely asks him to take some time off. Later, early in his acting career, he auditions for a Broadway musical. It was a perfect role, except for one tiny problem. He couldn't sing. He failed the audition completely. He didn't get the job, but he didn't fall back. He just kept auditioning. And here is the absolute kicker. 30 years later, he starred in the play Fences on Broadway, winning massive acclaim at the exact same theater where he failed that first audition.
And this wonderfully illustrates how failure is often the absolute best compass to figure out where you're actually supposed to go. Denzel's college path wasn't a straight line at all. Step 1, he started as pre-med. He took a course called cardiac morphogenesis, realized he couldn't even pronounce it, let alone pass it, and failed spectacularly. Step 2, he shifted to pre-law. Step 3, journalism. And finally, Step 4, he found his true purpose. His life wasn't a straight path, and yours won't be either. Trial and error is exactly how you find your true direction.
Moving right along to Section 3, Risks for Personal Development.
We need to clearly list the specific risks you have to take to continuously develop and grow. First, you have to risk going outside the box. Denzel mentions that old 9-dot IQ test, where you have to connect the dots without lifting your pencil. Literally, the only way to solve it is to draw outside the box. Next, you must risk dreaming big, but you have to anchor those dreams with actual goals, because without goals, they're just dreams. Taking a risk is also about humility, knowing what you know, but more importantly, knowing what you don't know. It means being open to new people and new ideas. And finally, taking a risk means giving your own resources, giving your time, your talents, and your treasures to something much bigger than yourself.
And you know, sometimes taking a risk means believing in something you can't even see yet. Denzel shares this incredibly emotional story from March 27, 1975. He was at his absolute lowest point, sitting in his mother's beauty shop in Mount Vernon. An older woman there kept staring at him through the mirror. Finally, she takes the dryer off her head and gives him this prophecy. He says, "Young boy, you are going to travel the world and speak to millions of people." He had to take the massive risk of actually believing in his own potential. And years later, through his movies, that prophecy became an absolute reality.
Which brings us to our final part today, Section 4, Ghosts of Unfulfilled Potential.
I want you to really visualize this next scenario because it's pretty intense. Imagine you are on your deathbed, and standing around your bed are ghosts. But they aren't the ghosts of your ancestors. They are the ghosts representing your own unfulfilled potential. The ghosts of the incredible ideas you never acted on. The ghosts of the talents you hid away because you were scared. And they're standing around your bed, angry, disappointed, and upset. They look right at you and say, "We came to you because you could have brought us to life, and now we have to go to the grave together."
So the absolute most crucial, provocative question you can ask yourself right now is this: how many ghosts are going to be around your bed when your time comes? If you keep playing it safe, if you keep relying on that comfortable fallback plan instead of falling forward into your passions, you are actively creating those ghosts right this very second.
But hey, here's the good news. You don't have to take them to the grave, because the world desperately needs whatever specific, unique talents you are holding back. Denzel pointed out that from places experiencing terrible poverty in South Africa, to the Middle East, to Alabama, to Philadelphia, the world needs your gifts. And it's not just about money or fame. Maybe you're a business major, a nurse, or a sociologist. Maybe your gift is money, but maybe it's patience, or kindness, or love, or just the ability to endure. Whatever it is, the world needs it from you.
So the ultimate question that I want echoing in your mind long after this explainer is over is this: what are you going to do with what you have? Are you going to hold back? Or are you going to give it everything you've got? Embrace the inevitable failures. Have the guts to step outside the box, take those essential risks for your personal development, and whatever you do, when you inevitably fall throughout life, fall forward. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope this helps you totally reframe your next big leap.